What's up, everybody? I just wanted to give you guys a quick example on how to graph sine functions. If you guys notice, I already have the sine function already displayed for us, so we're going to use that guy to graph the new sine function. So what we need to first identify is what the transformation is. In this case, this transformation, when it's inside the parentheses, is known as a phase shift. So what we want to do is we want to think about how is this affecting the sine graph. So when it's inside the parentheses, it's always going to be the opposite. So the opposite of positive pi over 2 is going to be negative pi over 2. So every theta is being shifted by negative pi over 2. So that's what we're going to do to all of our thetas right here. We're going to shift all of these guys left pi over 2. So let's subtract pi over 2 from each one. So 0 minus pi over 2. So I'm just going to get negative pi over 2. Oops, let me see if I can zoom in on that. I'm going to get negative pi over 2. Pi over 2 minus pi over 2, that's just going to give me 0. Pi minus pi over 2, that's just going to give me pi over 2. 3 pi over 2 minus pi over 2, that's just going to give me pi. And then 2 pi minus pi over 2, that's going to give me 3 pi over 2. Now let me show you guys how I'm getting these values when I subtract. So we can see that just 0 take away pi over 2. Clearly that's going to just give me negative pi over 2. So that one's good, that one's good. Let's look at the pi minus pi over 2. So if I have pi minus pi over 2, let's make this a fraction. Let's put a 1 under it. And to get common denominators, let's multiply it by 2. So this gives me 2 over 2. And just subtract the numerators. We can think about that as being a 1 pi. So 2 pi minus 1 pi gives me 1 pi divided by 2. And I can just do that for the rest of them. And all of my sine of theta values are all going to stay the same. So that's going to be 0, that's going to be 1, 0, negative 1, and 0. So let's graph the parent function first, the sine of theta, and then we'll graph the new one. So 0, 0, pi over 2, 1, pi 0, pi over 2, negative 1, and 2 pi 0. And then we connect this graph. I know it's not beautiful. Actually, let me try that one more time. A little better. Now let's graph the new one. So negative pi over 2, so my theta is negative. I have to go back pi over 2. I have 0. At 0, I have 1. At pi over 2, I have 0. At pi, I have negative 1. And at 3 pi over 2, I have 0. So now let me draw my graphs. And notice how every point from the original graph gets shifted over pi over 2 to become the new point. Every point gets shifted. It goes back, so minus pi over 2. And now we already know that the amplitude for all of these guys is going to be a equals 1. It's just going to be the number in front there. You know, the period is always going to be 2 pi. And the phase shift we saw is negative